Tambo Bank in Pretoria, an excellent contribution to the struggle against apartheid and for contributing to the development of the African continent. Dr. Musuris, as Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, he was director of the Center Against Apartheid from 1987 to 1992. And he visited several times South Africa in meeting with Nelson Mandela and many other personalities of the country. Dr. Musuris, please have the floor.
Thank you, Andoni. Thank you for reminding us of a historical, glorious period of humanity. I am talking about the miracle of South Africa, the peaceful abolition of apartheid. The nations, I think, had a crucial role in that. In addition, of course, people of South Africa. I was in South Africa several times. In one of my visits, I had a meeting with Albertina Sisulu, mother of the ambassador of South Africa to Greece, of Mr. Arabositas, then consul of South Africa.
Mr. Musuris, we cannot hear what you are saying. We cannot hear you.
Κύριε Μουσούρη, επειδή μικροφωνίζει, είστε εσείς όλα τα μικρόφωνα από όλους τους participants. Δεν γίνεται έτσι.
I was in the embassy of South Africa 22 years ago with Helen Basu and with the ambassador David Jacobs, and then the idea, the inspiration of establishing a chamber of commerce was born. And then we followed
Mr. Musuris, you are mute now. You are mute.
the link of Mbeki and of Ramaphosa were the reasons of this impact in the whole continent and in the world. Now, Greece and South Africa have relations for many great communities in South Africa in all fields, from law, for instance, great friend, Bezos, and close to Mandela, and in business, like Mr. Nicolaou. And I think the quality of this economic relationship with South Africa was much better than the quantity. I think there is a need to do better. And now that the Greek government has put in its agenda relations with Africa, we have the hope that following even this discussion, projects for future business relations in trade and in investment. And in cooperation with European Business Council for Africa, EPCAM is an organization in Brussels of chambers who deal, European chambers who deal with Africa. And it has the voice of the private sector towards the European Commission. It's the conduit, and somehow is an advisor to the European Commission regarding issues of Africa, economic issues. We have to increase our relations with South Africa and I believe we will do. And also vice versa, trade and investment of South Africa to Greece. South Africa is a big country. And also vice versa. And I believe even in this difficult period, after the invasion of Russia to Greece, the situation will improve and will act together. Thank you very much. And I hope that this discussion will help you for your plans. Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Moussouris. And I must really appreciate what you said. And I hope that this event will be conducive in promoting several times, which means that a lot of people still have the microphones open. Please put it. Having said that, yes, we hope that this event will try and promote the things that this chamber would like to promote in bilateral and multilateral relations with the African. Sisulu, please have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mavridis. Good afternoon. Mr. Sotiris Moussouris, President of the African Hellenic Chamber, Mr. Alvin, Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Mr. Yanis Mirilis, Secretary General of the International Economic Affairs at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Hellenic Republic, my counterpart, His Excellency, Mr. George Arovositas, Hellenic Republic in South Africa, distinguished guests, and esteemed presenters who will carry this virtual conference on their very broad shoulders. Mr. Moussouris invited me to their annual pizza cutting event with the board of the African Hellenic Chamber, and during auditions informed me of the idea of a virtual conference on trade and investment opportunities in South Africa. I was very enthusiastic in my support for such an initiative because I was cognizant of the fact that Africa has become a priority for Greece and promote our country and bring awareness of all opportunities that it could offer to potential partners. My conviction about the importance of this virtual webinar was later amplified during my meeting with Minister Nikos Dendias, the foreign minister in the Hellenic Republic, who bemoaned the low levels of trade and investment flows between our countries and was greatly pleased when I was informed him of this webinar and the positive outcomes that it could present to us. Ladies and gentlemen, this webinar is taking place at a time when the Hellenic Republic, particularly the Foreign Ministry, is focusing on Africa. We have seen Minister Dendias' energetic engagement of fellow African countries in the past few months. Most importantly for us, the webinar takes place
Ambassador,
you are muted.
you have been muted. We cannot hear you.
Sorry. Mr. Moussouris, President of the Hellenic Republic Chamber, Mr. Alvin, Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Mr. Yanis Mirilis, Secretary General of International Economic Affairs at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Hellenic Republic, my counterpart, His Excellency, Mr. George Arovositas, Ambassador of the Hellenic Republic in South Africa, distinguished guests and esteemed presenters who will carry this virtual conference on their very broad shoulders. It was earlier this year that Mr. Moussouris invited me to their annual pizza cutting event with the African Hellenic Chamber, and during our deliberations informed me of the idea of a virtual conference on investment opportunities in South Africa. I was enthusiastic in my support for such an initiative because I was cognizant of the fact that Africa had become a priority for Greece, and it is imperative that we at the embassy take full advantage of every opportunity accorded to promote our country and bring awareness of all opportunities that it could offer to potential partners. My conviction about the importance of this virtual webinar was later amplified during my meeting with Minister Nikos Dendias, who bemoaned the low levels of trade and investment flows between our countries, and was greatly pleased when I informed him of this webinar and the positive outcomes that it could present to us. Ladies and gentlemen, this webinar takes place at a time when the Hellenic Republic, particularly the Foreign Ministry, is focusing on. We have seen Minister Dendias' energetic engagement of fellow African countries in the past few months. Most importantly for us, the webinar takes place when we are waiting to host Minister Dendias in South Africa. Ties is, of course, also clearly demonstrated by the presence of my principal, Deputy Minister Alvin today. I am hopeful that through the informative presentations, we will have a fruitful engagement with tangible outcomes for South Africa and the Hellenic Republic. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Sisulu. It was quite noted the importance we're trying to find out through meetings of this kind in order to enhance the bilateral relations between South Africa and Greece. And I would like now to welcome Mr. Alvin Botes, South African Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, that he will give us a short speech on bilateral and multilateral relations and trade evolution, particularly focused for South Africa and Greece. Mr. Botes, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Program Director, Messenger Mavrides, Ambassador George Avrevositas, Ambassador Beryl Sisulu, the President of the Hellenic Chamber of Business, Messenger Mosores, Business Chambers and Association, distinguished guests.
Recording stopped.
Allow me to stand on the established protocol, Chair. I think, on behalf of South Africa's government, we are elated
Recording
for this
in progress.
array of representatives in Greece business community, national COVID-19 pandemic, and I think this will surely fortify, our bilateral diplomatic relations. What is important, Program Director, is that having hindsight for the COVID-19 pandemic, South Africa, together with India, have put forward a proposal to the WTO to, at a temporary manner, waive the intellectual property rights to allow the local vaccines production for your more underdeveloped South. So we are seized with that matter, and I think the enhanced production pharmaceutical capabilities that South Africa has demonstrated surely is an opportunity, obviously, for the Greek business, the Greece business community to maximize the flotation from our economic diplomacy is concerned. Importantly, Chairperson, I think you are aware that Greece has applied to become a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council for the period 2025 to 2026. As South Africa, we unequivocally support this candidacy of Greece, have a conscious obligation to ensure that those that occupy seats in this very prominent organ of the United Nations actually have very clear shared value systems with South Africa, and we think that it is going to be able to ensure that there's enhanced relationships between we as South Africa encourage the implementation and development of confidence building measures, that financial symmetry to bring about our just transition are actually accepted. But we think it's an important opportunity for engagement for those companies that are in the green technology space. And I think we would want to invite them to have quite significant discussions with our economic advisory unit located in the presidency. Chair, I must indicate, like Ambassador Sisulu have related earlier on, that we see the efforts of the Greece Minister Nico Hendias as complementary to bring about an expansion of the diplomatic and to deepen the diplomatic footprint of Greece, and to bring about very key, opportunity dividends for the business communities from Greece and South Africa. And obviously, we are supporting the efforts. And I'm saying so, Mr. Antonio Mavridis, because the President Cyril Ramaphosa have announced investment drive of 1.2 trillion rand over a period of 5 years. And what we can record is that we have achieved 95% of that very ambitious target. So there is significant FDI inflows into South Africa, and we think it established a firm footprint, the forward-looking community from Greece to partner with the South African business community to deepen, our manufacturing base and to bring about industrialization. And I'm raising it because there's probably the biggest opportunity program direct in South Africa today, before, as opposed for COVID-19 pandemic, is that we have commenced with the implementation of the African Continental Trade, which encompasses 54 states of Africa, which has been rectified by 43 states. And I'm raising it because I think it's a significant matter. I want to just cite the two statistics so that business associations, men and women, will be adequately canvassed to bring about more opportunities in this space. 21st time our exports to Africa have exceeded our exports to the EU. Chair, our exports to the EU stood at 355 billion rand, and our exports to the rest of Africa stood at 305 billion rand. So that's significant in relation to what the African free trade could present to the bilateral economic trading partners to South Africa. And we obviously want to use this as an opportunity to deepen dialogue with the business associations and chambers. As I conclude, Chair, apart from the African Continental Agreement, South Africa has preferential access to both the EU and the United States. We remain the only country in Africa with a strategic partnership with the EU, and through the EU SAPUM Economic Partnership Agreement, we have a free trade agreement in place that allows for commonality in terms of preferential access to the EU and South Africa and each other's market. Secondly, Chair, the African Growth and Opportunity is a unilateral offer from the US to access the American market offered to African countries. It then holds, Chairperson, that South Africa, we regard ourselves as the gateway for opportunity dividend to Greece, and we use this opportunity to obviously invite the business community to deepen our bilateral relations. Thank you very much.
Deputy Minister Alvin Botes, thank you very much. That was a very, very interesting reference to our relations letters that South Africa is having and the standings that go to the various organizations, plus the very interesting thing about the position of Africa into the issues that Greece is challenged at the moment, and also with the position that South Africa has got for Greece's position to the United Nations Security Council. I think the Greek representatives of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and although up to now the number one business partner, trading partner for South Africa, it was the European Union. I see that Africa now is overcome that by a little, but still now Africa is the most important trading partner, and that is a signal that South Africa can be for the rest of Africa for the Greek interests. Thank you very much, and now we going on to Mr. Ioannis Mirlis, the Secretary General of the Greek Ministry of Foreign Affairs, National Economic Affairs, and President of Enterprise Greece, and Greek Organization for Investment Trade, similar to the Invest South Africa. Mr. Smirlis, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mavridis. Your Excellency, Deputy Minister, Your Excellency Ambassadors, dear President of the Hellenic African Chamber of Commerce, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to, in light of the current challenging geopolitical developments, where there is a growing need for cooperation with Africa, and particularly with South Africa, a key country not only for the EU, but also for Greece. We should work all together under the same rules, under international law and the international law of the sea, because this is the framework under which we should work together for peace, stability, and development for our people. So these initiatives help on that, helps in order to and promote interaction among companies, thus creating the necessary business environment for the private sector in order to undertake the so needed market initiatives. The role of the Hellenic African Chamber of Commerce and Development, a member of European Business Council for Africa, is important. As for the past 22-23 years, it serves its purposes by promoting the economic and trade relations between Greece and African countries, supporting and consulting medium-sized enterprises in identifying business and investment opportunities in Africa, providing information on African economies, advising and facilitating African business activities in organizing briefings about Africa and individual countries, advancing and organizing trade and investment missions to African countries, and cooperating with the major driving force for peace and stability. Our world is entering a new complex period. The COVID-19 pandemic is still generating a lot of uncertainty in the world economy and in many aspects in the global trade. In addition, the political instability deriving from regional armed conflicts in Africa and elsewhere, as well as the ongoing war in Ukraine, the invasion of Russia and Ukraine, are also questioning the rules based on our world order. Financial sanctions and relevant countermeasures in important countries of the world economy, disruption in supply chains, inflation, rising commodity prices, energy crisis, climate change, potential food and product shortages are modern challenges that both Greece and South Africa should tackle. To this end, enhanced and continuous regional and bilateral cooperation in all realms could act as a stabilizing factor. In parallel, the business communities of the two countries greatly contribute towards this direction. Today's meeting is an excellent example of building synergies between both public and private sector of the countries. For Greece, South Africa is a trade partner with great potential. South Africa has the second largest and most developed economy in the African continent and is a member of the G20 group. Not to mention that the stock exchange of Johannesburg is listed among the top 20 stock markets of the world. At the same time, it is used as a hub for neighboring markets. And this is proof of what His Excellency Deputy Minister said before about how they neighbors on trade, like Zambia, Mozambique, Angola, Botswana, and a lot of more countries than this. According to Greek Statistical Authority, Elstat data, Greek exports, on the other hand, in 2021, recovered and reached 74.5 million euro, increased by 32.4% compared to 2020. while our imports are 76.8 million euro, with an increase of 25.4%. Greece recorded a deficit of 2.3 million euro trade in 2021. In the past, Greek investments have been made in South Africa in the following sectors: commercial banking services, games and services, production of plastics, winery, production of ice cream, production of commercial refrigeration appliances, production of aluminium products, shipping services, of photovoltaic systems, technology services, waste management. On the other hand, South African companies are interested in making investments with Greek leaders, especially in the fields of pharmaceuticals. After a period of investments stagnation, those recent developments are very encouraging, but there is ample room for improvement. Bilateral economic and trade relations must be further developed. There are business opportunities in port infrastructure, environmental equipment and technologies, construction, medical equipment. Our goal for Greece is to become an investment partner of South Africa, creating synergies and encouraging cooperation in sectors where both countries have comparative advantages, complementarity, and mutual benefit. Ladies and gentlemen, as we are well aware, the Greek economy is on the road to post-COVID recovery with rapid economic growth rate. In particular, Greece's economy is expected to grow at a robust of 3.5% rate, better than expected rebound in 2021, which represents one of the fastest growth rates in Europe. Moreover, also saw record foreign direct investment in 2021, reaching 5 billion euro and marking the largest FDI inflow since 2002, confirming that our country is on the right track, a competitive and positive business-friendly environment. Is moving towards it in Greece, as well as in exporting goods and services. At the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we attach great importance both in supporting exports and promoting. That's why we incorporated under a single and coherent structure all competent units for economic extroversion. Further established the gateway of extroversion. Enterprise Greece and the Export Credit Greece are the two main flexible support bodies for extroversion that are currently under the supervision of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. By integrating those extroversion structures in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we're aiming at the best coordination and exploitation of the available resources. Our will is to support Greek companies to strengthen their export activity. Amid the pandemic, Enterprise Greece adapted really fast to the new conditions and all the digital tools so as to train Greek exporters and acquire the necessary supplies for a successful digital presence on the global electronic platforms, taking advantage of EGs. In the area of export credit insurance, we restructured the institutional framework of ECIO in order to provide a series of new products to ensure exports and technical projects in new markets on very competitive terms. Exporters shall take advantage of all these new trade opportunities. At the same time, we take full advantage of the existing network of the 60 offices of economic and commercial affairs of the Greek embassies, companies in foreign markets, by promoting cooperation, common values, and a closer understanding of peoples and cultures. At this point, I would like also to mention the National Strategy for Extroversion that constitutes a tangible product of our new perception of economic diplomacy. The National Strategy for Extroversion integrates all actions of relevant stakeholders per sector, covering of economic diplomacy. Specifically, South Africa is among our target countries. Having said that, I would like to thank the Hellenic Commerce and Development for its constructive cooperation so far, which we expect that it will be continued. Ladies and gentlemen, there is great potential of collaboration between our countries for the best.
Thank you, Mr. Minglis, and much appreciated for your inputs, and which I believe that everybody is taken full cognizance and noted. Now I would like to move to the Greek ambassador in South Africa, Mr. Arabostas. Mr. Arabostas is the resident ambassador of Greece to South Africa, and he is known resident ambassador to Eswatini, Lesotho, Mozambique, and Namibia. Mr. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Greetings to all participants in today's webinar especially our Secretary General for International Economic Relations, Mr. Smidlis, and of course, the Honorable Minister, Alvin, and my South African counterpart. Congrats to good friend Sotiris Moussouris and his associates at the Hellenic African Chamber of Commerce for one more excellent initiative. A real pleasure for me, almost 6 months after the assumption of my duties in Pretoria, to participate in this webinar, the first in many, I hope, that is aimed to bring our two countries closer with the use of modern technology. It is true that the pandemic has been a challenge for all of us, but now that travel restrictions have been lifted, we can again work closely to redefine and enhance our relations in many sectors, including the economy, specifically the bilateral trade and investments. In my so farm term of duty, as well as in the 90s, when I was posted in the Western Cape, I never stopped meeting with business people, mainly of Greek origin, and the common wish expressed was the same. We need to show the world, and in particular, the entrepreneurial community in Greece, the attractiveness of South Africa for serious investments. Today, more than ever before, South Africa is blessed to provide numerous advantages, such as suitable infrastructure, variety of resources, comparatively low labor costs, and extended maritime access. All these, together with economic and political stability, constitute a bright picture of a place that knows very well to reward the serious investor. Not forget also the strategic significance of a country that is a main member of many regional and other organizations, BRICS, SADC, SACU, etc. And of course, at the same time, is the main gateway to sub-Saharan Africa. Integrated efficiently in the worldwide economic network represents a vast market with business opportunities in many sectors where Greek entrepreneurs can traditionally focus: food industry, pharmaceuticals, green and renewable energy, state, constructions, and of course, tourism, which has recently reopened after almost 2 years in limbo. The links between the two countries are historical and very strong due to the common devotion in the ideals of freedom and democracy, and of course, due to the long presence of a large, dynamic Greek community in South Africa, very much business-orientated as well. Finally, proof of the true willingness of both sides to advance towards progress is, I believe, today's appearance of so many high-level participants in this very interesting webinar. Thank you.
My dear Yorgo, the Chamber and myself are delighted to have you. You are the right man in the right place. We're looking forward to our close cooperation.
Thank you, Mr. Moussouris. Thank you, Ambassador Vostas, for your inputs. And we would like to move forward. And without further ado, there is the representatives of 3 organizations that we said the webinar is under their auspices. And we would like to introduce their organization with a brief greeting. Starting with Mrs. Vicky, who is a senior advisor and export ready of the Hellenic Federation of Enterprises. Mrs. Makrigiani.
Thank you, Mr. Mavridis. Your Excellencies, dear guests from South Africa, dear participants, on behalf of SEF, the Hellenic Federation of Enterprises, I would like also to thank the Hellenic African Chamber of Commerce and Development, our Sub-Saharan Africa, for hosting today's meeting on business opportunities in South Africa. I will not take much of your time. I'm sure the experts from will cover all trade and investment issues. I would just like to mention that in November 2017, we have organized the business mission together with the Hellenic African Chamber, a very successful mission to South Africa. We had with us 12 Greek companies from different sectors, and with extensive experience and presence in global markets, which have many B2B meetings while during our stay in South Africa, and the results were very, very positive. Our host at the time, Johannesburg Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which I see it's further on in the program, with which we have signed an MOU. And one of the clauses mentioned reciprocal visits. So we're looking forward to receiving a delegation from South Africa to examine further the prospects for investments and joint cooperation in many areas that the Greek economy has a comparative advantage, like the infrastructure, energy, construction, building materials, agricultural products. And thank you very much for your time, and I wish you all success.
Thank you, dear Ms. Makrigianni. And now moving to the representative of the Athens Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Nikos Vasiliou, who is a member of the executive board and responsible for international relations of the Athens Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Vasiliou, you have the floor. Mr. Vasiliou, can you hear us? Now, please unmute your mic.
Okay. Now it's okay. Your Excellencies, for dear President, dear friends, on behalf of the Athens Chamber of the Commerce and Industry, I would like to welcome you and thank you for Hellenic African Development for organizing today information meetings of business operations in South Africa. Today aims to exploring possibility in further cooperation between Greece and South Africa on mutually beneficial terms of the both countries. Ladies and gentlemen, the Athens Chamber of Commerce and Industry is the leading chamber in Greece with more than 100,000 active members representing the whole spectrum of the enterprises. A principal concern of our is to explain the extrovert character to Greek companies. Along this line, a thought. ACCI organized training mission aboard receive foreign training mission from all the world and organization seminars, workshop with a view development the bilateral relations with other countries. One of those actions is today's conference about the business of South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, it is worth sharing that South Africa was a major reception center for Greek immigrants, and especially during the mid of 20th century. The largest Greek communities in Johannesburg, from the Cape Town, Pretoria, and Durban are about 40,000 people. All in a cooperation between Greece and South Africa. Regarding our economic relation, the trade balance between our countries turned negative for Greece in 2020 and 2021, and this considered very poor. There is great potential for further improvement in our trade relations. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to assure you our chamber, as the biggest chamber in Greece, will continue to work in close cooperation with Hellenic African Chamber, in order to develop our bilateral relations in all countries in Africa. Thank you for all the attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vasiliou, for your contribution to this webinar. Mr. Panagiotis Hassapis, who is the Executive Vice President of the Greek Exporters Association of Northern Greece. Mr. Hassapis, the floor is yours for a brief greeting.
Thank you. Your Excellencies, honorary guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of SEVE, Greek Exporters Association, I would like to thank you all for attending today's virtual conference and to congratulate once again the Hellenic African Chamber of Commerce and Development for another important initiative hosting this event. During the past 2 years, we have co-hosted and participated more than 5 events regarding the enhancement of the bilateral trade and investment between Greece and African countries. And our interest in doing business with Africa is constantly rising because of the prospects of the African economy and local enterprises. And through these webinars, we can figure out the way to go. South Africa is one of the most important countries in Africa. As a matter of fact, it is the largest economy and the 6th largest in terms of population in the continent. And in the past, South Africa was a major reception center for Greek immigrants, especially during the mid-20th century, while today it is estimated that more than 45 Greeks live in the country, mostly in Johannesburg, Cape Town, Pretoria, and Durban. Greece and South Africa have agreed a cooperation in cultural issues. The country provide development assistance to South Africa. And as far as the bilateral trade, as stated before from Mr. Smidlis, both exports and imports amounted to approximately 75 million euro in 2021, with total trade approximately 150 million euro, while in the first quarter of 2022, total trade amounted from 28 to 48 million euros in 2022, showing an approximately 75% increase, but half of it was due to the rise of the petroleum products. Greece's main exports to South Africa is machinery, pharmaceuticals, plastic. On the contrary, Greece imports vehicles, parts of accessories, and prepared animal fodder from South Africa. However, these amounts are really insignificant compared to the 22 billion euros European exports to South Africa and to the total imports of South Africa worth almost 80 billion euros. With China, Germany, and the US provided 6.5 and approximately 6 billion euros respectively. So these figures mentioned above depict the high prospects of the South African market in the great bilateral relations and history between the two countries could ease and foster doing business for Greek exporters. So the prerequisites are there. It is needless to say that many opportunities will arise, considering the fact that Africa is the next big thing in business, and its economy is expected to grow by 6% in 2030. And during the past 2 years, we realized that the Greek exporters are capable of further expanding their activity worldwide by reaching 40 billion euros exports in 2021. And we're focusing now on markets such as South Africa, and they will ensure that they will keep growing our exports in our economy. We hope that, hoping that this webinar will be fruitful for everyone. I would like to thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Hassapis. Your point taken. And we would like to move on. We're almost halfway through, and now we're entering the group of the main keynote speakers with their presentations. And please, I would like also to ask you if you have any questions, please jot them down and keep them for the session we have at the end. If there is any specific one you would like to make to any one of the previous speakers, please keep it unless the speaker is leaving us early, and then you may want to address it there and then. But here we're going then to Mrs. Kaya. Mrs. Trudy Makaya is a South African economist who is please mute your Thank you. Ms. Trudy Makaya is the South African economist. She is the economic advisor to President Ramaphosa, and she will focus on economic recovery and reform in Africa. Ms. Makaya, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Program Director. And good afternoon, Deputy Minister Bottas, to the ambassadors, to Dr. Musuris, and all esteemed presenters and guests. I'm just going to take you through a quick presentation focused, as the Program Director has mentioned, on economic recovery. So I won't go too much into background because I believe most people who are here are quite familiar with the South African economy. But I think it's important that we cover some areas just to give a sense of where we are at the moment and also what the opportunities for growth are. So it'll take a few minutes, but I'll just give those highlights and insights. Starting with some good, I think as has been mentioned before, a lot of our economies have really taken a knock with the pandemic, and recovery has been, elusive. And yet we find that in the first quarter of 2022, real GDP growth came in at 1.9%, which was far higher than most expectations, given some of the had in previous months. In 2021, the full year, our economy grew by 4.9%, very solid recovery from, and also reflecting a lot of the policy positions that had been taken to support the economy, to put resources into the economy, and to ensure that businesses and households are able to bounce back from the pandemic. In 2020, of course, there had been a decrease of 6.4%. So if you look at that trend, we're clearly on to a strong performance with the economy at the same size and was expected for at least another year. So we've gained the ground that we have lost. In fact, the economy is a little larger than it was before the pandemic. So we are on a great path to growth, and we're seeing green shoots across the economy. Inflation, of course, is a topical issue at the moment. We're a country that targets inflation range to 6%. Our latest CPI, Consumer Price Index, reading is at 5.9%. Still quite low by global comparisons, given the numbers that we're seeing in many parts of the world. But of course, a bit of a concern in that it's reaching the upper end of the 3 to 6% target. And in response to that, we're also seeing that our interest rates are now on an upward trend. In terms of population, we have a country of 60.1 million, a very young population, 63% under the age of, and 67.4% urbanized. We just concluded a census, so those numbers will be updated, but it gives you a sense of the demographic opportunities that are available in a growing population, a young population growing and also quite urbanized. Logistics and digital infrastructure, most of you who would have been to South Africa would be aware that we have a very strong installed base of infrastructure. A few figures, 144 airports with paved runways. Of course, Cape Town, Johannesburg, Durban, Kinshasa, OR Tambo would be ones that are best known and international. We have a railway network of 20,986 kilometers, which is the most extensive on the continent and across the developed world. Extensive paved road network for logistics, 8 seaports, Durban, Richards Bay, East London, Tuga, PE, Cape Town, Saldanha Bay, Mossel Bay, all of them quite active and well integrated into global trade flows. Durban and Cape Town are 2 of the world's top container ports, and we also have 2 of the world's largest dry in Richards Bay and Saldanha. And In terms of our digital infrastructure, an interesting figure, we have the highest number of internet servers on the continent. So a very well-established logistics base that we are continuously working to improve. Ours is a mixed economy with quite vibrant markets. So if you look at investment in the South African economy, by far the greatest proportion comes from the private sector. So 71% by 2019, this investment came from the private sector. We also have very important investments coming in from the state. So our state-owned enterprises, our public corporations like Transnet, like Eskom, are really the backbone of our network industries, and they're also significant contributors to investment. And of course, we have general government itself consistently investing in infrastructure and other sorts of fixed capital. But you get the sense of a mixed economy and one where there are different roles that are played by different segments of society. Now, if we look at sectors in terms of fixed investment spending, you'll see that if we take the 5-year period and from 2015 to 2019, just before the pandemic, and we take an average, fixed investment activity has been dominated by take away from this picture is that it's a very diversified economy, dominated by services, but also important secondary sectors. The challenge that we resolve economically above all challenges is that of unemployment. But I think this audience, with experiences in the Greek economy, you will relate to some of the challenges that we have in this sphere. We often get asked, why is unemployment so high in South Africa? And there are various factors. Much as I mentioned that it's diversified, but those sectors in developing countries that typically employ a lot of people in culture are very small in the South African setting. And we also find that our manufacturing has been deindustrializing. There's a lot of work that's been done to halt the deindustrialization through localization and investment, but it is a reality that manufacturing is a much smaller proportion now than it was, say, 20 years ago. We welcome investment for many reasons, but also because we want to break the concentration within our economy. Economic activity, in many sectors, you'll find that there's 3 or 4 firms that dominate, sometimes even 2 or even a monopoly. And small business and new entrants often struggle to get into those sectors. And this is a problem for unemployment because it is usually smaller businesses that tend to employ most people. Given the legacy of apartheid, I think we had very warm, welcoming words, alluding to that history of apartheid, but it also still expresses itself in the spatial distribution of economic activity. We find that we still have economic activity concentrated in key urban areas, and even within those urban areas, concentrated to what would have been historically white areas. So quite an agenda to ensure that we can diversify the spread of our economic activity. We're also working on our regulation, which sometimes can be quite tough on small business in particular. We're also working on transaction costs in the economy, our network industries like telecoms, logistics, electricity. We have to make sure that we get those costs down. And of course, skills. We have a lot of work to do to make sure that our young people, because this is a particularly young economy with high levels of youth unemployment, we have to find ways to ensure the skills that are required. And we often talk to investors to say it's well and good to have investment plans, but also think about how you're going to impart skills and training to the population. Now, just to give an update on the economic reconstruction and recovery plan, this was that President Ramaphosa led society, business, civil society, labor unions to come up with a consolidated plan which was discussed in one of our forums called NEDLEC, as a joint whole of society approach towards economic reconstruction and recovery in the face of the pandemic. Now, the plan had various pillars. I won't go into detail on some of them, but I'll give feedback on some things. But if we look at the priority intervention, we also had a pillar looking at tourism recovery and growth, understanding that tourism, of course, was taken out in terms of really having, suffering under lockdowns and global when Omicron came on. We also had Africa being frozen out of international markets, but have to maintain our tourism businesses and to ensure that they're poised to take advantage of the return of business and leisure tourism. So an important pillar was tourism, the green economy, acknowledging that as a flip side to energy security towards looking at more climate-friendly ways, of course, not just in energy, but also in transport, in industry, in agriculture, in many other areas. Responding to climate change also brings its own economic opportunities. We also had food security as a pillar. And here government did work to support subsistence farmers. But this was also underpinned by a very extensive package of social measures, income protection. The first time we had a grant that was given to unemployed adults who don't have any other source of income to ensure able to meet their basic needs and that we don't have concerns around hunger, given the severity of the economic contraction. So food security, an important pillar, also important for stimulating the agricultural sector. And the eighth pillar, we had gender equality and economic inclusion, once again, through our various tools, state procurement, ensuring that women have a fair share of economic gains. Now, there were various that underpin this, fiscal sustainability being very important because we went into the pandemic with a high debt burden, relatively high for an emerging market, and it was important that we get that back under control with current challenges. Regulatory changes to enable growth. I spoke earlier about the importance of lowering transaction costs within the economy. This is good for business activity, structural reforms that will unlock opportunities within the economy. Building a capable state, always an important priority to ensure that we're able to deliver services efficiently and that we are able to sustain investments. This has become very important also at local government with interventions at district level to ensure that investors, wherever we find them, even if it's in the most remote part of the country, receive an acceptable level of service. And of course, the community is also served in doing so. Economic diplomacy and African integration has also been important. I think Deputy Minister spoke to that statistic about our increasing prominence